Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to Empowering RIE Forum. My name is Jacqueline Chow, delighted to be your MC this afternoon. Now, organized for the very first time as part of the Singapore International Cyber Week, thank you all for joining us here. It's wonderful to have you in this room. Your presence is very much appreciated. Now, cybersecurity has often been described as a team sport, requiring partners to come together, to work together. Which is why this afternoon we have invited cybersecurity practitioners across government, industry, academia, with the aim to foster greater collaboration. Through empowering research, innovation, and enterprise, we hope to nurture a more collaborative cybersecurity ecosystem, enabling us to better address both current and future challenges in this field. Now, before I hand over the time to our moderator, just want to remind everyone we do have a Q&A segment during our panel discussion. We would love for you to join in the dialogue. Now, how do you pose your questions? All you need to do is to scan the QR code that you see on the screen that will be coming right up shortly. Scan the QR code, or if not, you can also go into Slido, right? All you need to do is to hashtag SICWRIE. We'd love to have as many questions from you, and we'll take as many questions as we can during this live session. With that, it is my pleasure to welcome our moderator, Mr. Gaurav Kirti, Executive Vice President, Advisory and Emerging Business, Ensign Info Security. And our panelists for this session, please welcome on stage Mr. David Koh, Commissioner of Cybersecurity and Chief Executive, Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore, Chief Digital Security and Technology, Ministry of Digital Development and Information. Mr. Craig Stephan, Executive Vice President, Oracle. Professor Luke Ong, Vice President and Professor, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Professor Wen Kee Lee, Executive Director, Institute for Information Security and Privacy, Georgia Institute of Technology. And Ms. Sharon Tan, Engineer at Normal Security. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll hand the time over to our moderator, Mr. Gaurav. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So once again, my name is Gaurav Kirti. I'm the moderator for this session. I'll do a quick kind of 5-minute introduction before I hand over to our panelists today for them to share a little bit more about their thoughts on empowering RIE. The introduction is a little bit odd, so bear with me. And it starts with COVID. Some of you may have vague recollections of what happened during COVID and how we were all forced to learn new and bizarre hobbies because there was really nothing else to do. As I shared with Mr. Koh earlier, I developed an unusual interest in this thing called three-dimensional chess. Three-dimensional chess is like normal chess, except played simultaneously on multiple levels. It's bizarre, it's fascinating to watch, it's completely incomprehensible to most people, and the set of strategies and theories around it are very different. The dynamics are fascinating. Why is that relevant to this? Every industry has competitors. You know, if you're building apps, there are other companies building better apps. If you are selling tools, products, solutions, there are other companies that sell tools, products, and solutions, and services. So there's always a competitor in every industry. Cybersecurity is the same. It has competitors. I work in a company. My company has other companies, competitors that are doing similar types of work. Obviously, I will claim that we are better, but you know. Similar competitive dynamics. But cybersecurity is multi-dimensional chess. Why? Because in addition to having competitors, other vendors who are building, selling, producing tools and solutions that customers will buy, you know, there's the vendor's profit motive. We have another dimension of competition, hackers. And in some ways, it's quite a unique industry because unlike every other industry, our industry has a direct opposing force that is deliberately trying to break everything you build. And that's unusual. You have a direct opposition. If you build buildings, there's nobody running around deliberately trying to break your buildings. If you sell tools, yes, there are people who try to abuse them, but there is an entire industry motivated by greed trying to deliberately break everything that we do. So we have a direct oppositional force. We have a third dimension which people don't actually realize, and that competitive dynamic is with our users. All of you also use software and solutions, and I'm sure all of you have tried to stick thumb drives into laptops that you were told not to. You've all tried to surf to internet websites when you were told not to. And that usability, that demand and desire to have things just easier, a bit more efficient, a little bit less problematic, is another dynamic that cybersecurity is sometimes up against. So it is multidimensional chess. We're playing on different levels against different types of competitors, and the stakes are very high. There's this, I think it's an African proverb about lions. You know, you don't have to, in order to survive, you don't need to outrun the lion, you just need to outrun the guy next to you. That's probably true in many other industries. But in cybersecurity, because of this kind of multi-dimensional competition, because the hackers are empowered by technology to be scalable, implementable across geographies, we might need to outrun the lions as well. And that creates huge challenges. Being faster than the bad guys is something that only cybersecurity, unfortunately, really has to get right because of the stakes. So how do we outrun them? This is where we finally come to the topic. Greed is a powerful motive, and there's no doubt that there are a number of criminal actors out there who are very excited by the prospect of scamming or stealing ransomware, stealing money through ransomware. As Dr. Strange said in Marvel Avengers, after studying all 14 million possible ways to defeat Thanos, there was only one that succeeded. In our case, fighting hackers will always be an uphill struggle. Investing in RIE, making sure that we have the best technologies, innovative solutions, an ecosystem that really drives new generations of solutions and ways of thinking about the problem, that is the only way that we can get the upper hand. Allow me to introduce the cybersecurity avengers of RIE then. And I'm really excited to hear from each of them. As you listen to each of their sharing, please keep those thoughts, keep a probing mind, and subsequently, when we have the Q&A panel, I look forward to hearing your questions so we can engage them all in the conversation. It gives me great honor to start first by inviting Mr. David Koh for his address. Mr. Koh, please.
Thanks so much, Gaurav. And a very good afternoon to everybody here. It's great. We are having this inaugural edition of Empowering Research, Innovation, and Enterprise Forum as part of the Singapore International Cyber Week. And why are we having it here? When my colleagues first mooted the idea, I welcome the initiative and the spirit behind it, because we think that actually we need to foster closer collaboration between all the different entities that are involved in research, innovation, and enterprise, with the ultimate intention of trying to build a vibrant local cyber ecosystem, which is in line with supporting the broader national initiatives. While this is beneficial, we should also pursue international collaboration as a means to capitalize cybersecurity capability development and build broader cyber resilience. So in a way, it's similar to what Gaurav was saying, that there are different dimensions to this. And my hope is for this forum that we can have robust discussions across government, academia, and industry. And we don't always need to agree, but we can at least participate in a conversation and have a cross-pollination of ideas, sharing our perspectives. And also it helps if there's geographical diversity as well. I'd like to propose 3 ideas that I believe will guide our actions so that we can move ahead together. The first one is that I want to explore what constitutes a vibrant cyber ecosystem. There is a growing realization among cyber security thought leaders that a coordinated, synergistic, and value-creating tripartite relationship between government, industry, and academia no longer is a good to have, but it is an essential. Because no entity can adequately address the multifaceted cyber risks that a nation faces by itself, especially the way that Gaurav has framed it. Each entity has its unique strengths, a bit like the Avengers, and hopefully if we combine together, we can create an ecosystem that's capable of pushing the boundaries of research, technology development, and ultimately bringing it on board for workforce deployment and professionalization. In Singapore, we hope to grow and nurture an ecosystem of cybersecurity companies, innovators, and researchers to secure, firstly, our critical information infrastructure, and secondly, our digital way of life and economy. This is where the government can ideally fulfill its traditional role as a steady hand in outlining long-term national cybersecurity strategies, and where appropriate, shape and guide the trajectory of the industry and research institutes. We can do that mainly through in Singapore, we do that through two national level Cyber SG initiatives, the Cyber SG R&D Program Office, as well as the Cyber SG Talent, Innovation and Growth Plan. And to ensure that research can be directly applied to solve real-world challenges, government, researchers and end users must work closely together. The R&D Program Office is a key vehicle for us to ensure alignment and drive successful R&D outcomes. CSA, together with the rest of our national cyber agencies, are currently in the process of crystallizing our next 5-year tranche of the national cyber R&D priorities. Early estimates point towards a significant increase in funding for related R&D activities. This is expected given that we will need to keep pace with the growth of our digital economy as well as our smart nation ambitions. We will be working closely with industry to translate research findings into commercial products to meet both our security as well as economic objectives. The Cyber SG Talent, Innovation and Growth Plan aims to do exactly that by empowering enterprises with innovative solutions from academia that foster ideation and development of cybersecurity solutions. We also run a cybersecurity industry call for innovation, which encourages companies to address pressing cybersecurity challenges by matching them with local users, such as critical information infrastructure owners that have specific operational needs. The second idea touches on the importance of international cyber cooperation through joint research and development. Cyber attacks have become more sophisticated and pervasive, so no single country possesses the expertise or resources to combat these by ourselves. It's a major high-stakes initiative, such as emerging technologies in cybersecurity. Co-investment for multiple nations can be more strategic. It allows for the pooling of expertise, infrastructure, as well as resources. This kind of innovation, collaboration not only strengthens the individual nation's defenses, but it fosters trust and interoperability, which I think is also essential for cybersecurity. Through the national cyber R&D programs, we have invested in setting up research infrastructure that has enabled collaborative efforts between local and international partners in improving CII resilience. So one example is the iTrust Laboratories located in the Singapore University of Technology and Design. This research center hosts several world-class test beds that support the conduct of applied research, technology validation, and the design of large-scale cyber-physical systems. Of note is iTrust's digital twin test beds, which were employed during the annual exercise Lock Shields conducted by the NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence in Estonia to validate and improve the preparedness of member nations and partners against large-scale cyber attacks. These partnerships and initiatives demonstrate Singapore's commitment to strengthening global cybersecurity landscape through international collaboration. The third idea revolves around the individual. We must develop cybersecurity professionals with individual collaboration skills, a global vision, and a mission-driven focus. He or she must possess technical expertise, but also soft skills that drive success. A collaborative mindset is essential as the complex nature of cybersecurity often demands working across teams, disciplines, and borders. These professionals have to think globally, seize opportunities for international partnerships, and they should also be open-minded and proactively seek out collaboration opportunities, knowing that innovation often comes from having diverse perspectives. And if you're tall, dark, and handsome, it helps as well. At the same time, they also need to stay laser-focused on mission outcomes, ensuring that their efforts constantly align with the broader security goals. This combination of strategic thinking, openness to partnership, and a goal-oriented focus is what enables these individuals to turn cutting-edge research into real-world cybersecurity solutions. To groom aspiring cyber talent, CSA partnered with the Starry Academy and the Singapore Management University to curate 5-month cybersecurity strategic leadership programs. This program aims to strengthen our cybersecurity leaders' capabilities in influencing strategy, driving organizational posture, and to resolve challenges through innovation and partnerships. The opportunity to pick brains from industry leaders and forge strong bonds are proven to be invaluable in our line of work, and we seek to connect the dots from research and innovation to enterprise. So to close, we think that by building trust, deeper partnerships at all levels, it'll give ourselves the best chance to stay ahead of the curve in this fast-evolving field of cybersecurity. And I look forward to the meaningful discussions ahead. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mr. Koh. So 3 big ideas again: a vibrant cyber tripartite ecosystem, international cooperation with joint R&D, and cybersecurity leaders with vision, mission focus, and the ability to outrun lions. We move now to Mr. Craig Stephen, the Executive Vice President for R&D at Oracle Corporation, where he'll be sharing a little bit about how to drive innovation in cybersecurity. Mr. Stephen, please.
Thank you, Gaurav. I'm really honored to, and not to mention slightly terrified, to have the opportunity to speak to you at this amazing event here in Singapore today. So I've worked at Oracle basically my entire career for about 35 years, and I do many things. The most fun things of which are working on cybersecurity and running a research lab. Around 30 years ago, I developed an interest in cybersecurity when I may have, or I may not have, possibly logged into a computer system as Larry Ellison. Don't tell Larry, he doesn't actually know about this. Okay, so just don't tell him. Don't have to mention that. Now, to be fair, I could have logged in as anybody else. So not really Larry's fault. But as you all know, as cybersecurity professionals, Larry was CEO at the time, so it was his fault, okay? Because it's, as leaders, we take responsibility for cybersecurity. So, fast forward another 15 years, about 15 years ago, I was asked to take responsibility for research lab. Oracle had bought Sun Microsystems Laboratories. Oh, that sounds cool, Craig, that's great. Bunch of people smoking pipes, or maybe mad scientists with test tubes and stuff, that sounds awesome. No, terrifying, okay, this is terrifying. I have no business running research. I've never been in a research lab. Like, are you kidding? Like, this is horrifying. I'm gonna break this thing. So, but it worked out okay because I was able to bring a kind of beginner's mind to this job. And it went well. We had some good successes early on. And after a certain point, people began to ask me, hey, about innovation. And I came to hate this word. I began to think of innovation as a 4-letter word that happened to have 6 extra letters in it. So because like what happens is people, maybe you have somebody in your organization who has some R&D responsibility and it's not going well. Okay, hey, get me some help with innovation. Let me go out to the store and get some innovation sauce, and I'm going to sprinkle it around, and I'm going to do a better job. Oh, I'm going to get a book on innovation, and that's going to help me. Okay, there are a lot of books on innovation. Some of them are good. Okay, The Idea Factory by Gartner. Okay, that's a good one. You can read a book on innovation. Maybe you should, but I would not start there. And here's why. We had the Nobel Prizes this past week, right? 2 of them are, and we're going to connect this to AI and cybersecurity, I promise, okay? I will get there. 2 of them are about artificial intelligence. What fields were those granted in? Raise your hands, okay? Physics and chemistry, okay? Fields that are adjacent but not the same as AI and mathematics, okay? So read books in other fields, not your own, not the one you're trying to make some invention in, okay? I'd said invention, not innovation. Innovation is not the same as invention. Invention is inventing new things. Innovation is transferring that thing into the practical field. That means you have to deal with what? People. Okay, people. That means that all the people who work, some of them are sitting over at that table over there with me in the research lab, have to deal with other people who work in the rest of Oracle. That means you have to understand things like history and psychology. Read a work of fiction. I actually tell the people who work for me in the research lab, go read some fiction. Read some things. Go learn how to deal with other human beings because you spend most of your time dealing with people, not with math. Okay, so that's how you're going to succeed at innovating, not just inventing. Okay, so another thing about innovation is you got to give people actual problems. not blank sheets of paper with, hypothetical problems. You got to give them real problems that are fully constrained. So you got to go sit down with the people who are delivering real solutions into the marketplace, because this thing here, blank sheet of paper, is anathema to creativity. And the Irish poet William Butler Yeats wrote a great poem about this called The Fascination of What's Difficult. This is about how problem solving requires structure and constraints, okay, to unleash creativity. Okay, so that's that. Let's talk about cybersecurity and AI. So, 15 years ago, of course, we do a bunch of AI stuff in the research lab. 15 years ago, it was not so obvious. AI is another 4-letter word, it's missing 2 letters, okay? So maybe you can borrow some from innovation or something. So, but you could say the word machine learning. That was okay back then. And we got a lot of classical machine learning stuff going on in the research lab. And, because even back then, and, some of those these classic models are still state of the art, right? Because they're kind of right-sized. If your model matches the complexity of the underlying natural process, right, it's still going to work well. Not everything needs to be a large language model, right, or whatever to match the problem well. And I think if you look in your enterprise software that you're using to run your government agency or your business, you're going to see right now a lot of that getting built in. All right, there's a lot of latency in the software development and delivery cycle, but right about now it's all hitting the market. And what you need to do with your workforce is make sure that people are using those features. There's a ton of AutoML capability being delivered into the marketplace as well. So if your workforce is not using that, make them do it, okay? Now, deep learning is getting more interesting. Like we saw with image models, this kind of representation phenomena where models started to learn all by themselves representations of knowledge, like what's going on in image models. You pry open the lid and you see that they've learned things that are maybe that the human visual cortex has learned, like how to recognize edges and so on. Nobody taught the models these things. They just organized themselves to learn this. What are large language models learning? Well, we don't know yet, right? Maybe one of my co-panelists will explain it to us. I don't know. But nonetheless, these models are incredibly powerful and useful, but we don't quite know where they're going. There are huge error bars on this, right? We have on one side Jan LeCun, who thinks these models are not smarter than his house cat. We have on the other side Nobel Prize winner Geoffrey Hinton, who's worried for the future of humanity. Okay, so huge error bars. And the error bars are scary enough that nations and mega cap companies are in an existential fight to secure access to frontier models, right? You've got to have access to a frontier model. Many of you were probably sent to this conference. Don't bother coming home unless you've secured access to something, right? So this is super important. Meanwhile, like closer to everyday life, we've all got deployed in our enterprises, a whole stack of stuff like from Edge Network, you've got a bunch of anomaly detection stuff, and you've got identity analytics, and you've got log analytics, and a whole bunch of stuff, whether it's deep learning or simple models, or maybe even some LLMs in there. That stuff's all going to get a lot better with large language models, right? They're easy to integrate. In fact, large language models have this amazing property. They're so easy to integrate with enterprise software because you just tell them, integrate yourself, right? You basically just tell the large language model, go integrate with this other system, and it does. It's super cool that way. So that's going to be a real accelerant to innovation going forward. I think that's going to help us all go much faster. All right, I'm going to speed up a little bit. So that's cool. Now we have to make sure that the OODA loop goes fast like this because, as Gaurav pointed out, right? You don't have to just outrun the first guy. We're tracking at Oracle hundreds, literally hundreds of named threat actors, not just 1 or 2 lions. There are hundreds of lions. You got to outrun every single one of them. Now, we don't name them after wild animals like that. We name them after birds. I never knew that there were hundreds of different birds, but now I know lots of different birds. Okay, there are a lot of birds. Okay, so you got to outrun all these birds, and they're coming after you. So as leaders, go not only learn what all the birds are, but make sure that your workforce is embracing these technologies. Don't punish people who go and maybe they're not supposed to use the large language model because they're going to leak some information. Fine, I get it, but that's on you, okay, if they accidentally do that. Don't fire them, okay, promote them for using the LLM creatively, and go fix the information leak later, okay? And then, my last thing is, I'm here in Singapore because I think it's important to choose your friends wisely and carefully. I've taken to heart Minister Chiu and Mr. Koh's advice. We have to have difficult conversations about trust, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a point of view. I have a point of view, and I'm ready and willing to share that point of view with others. And I think I share some things with you in the audience about common values and a common belief in making the most out of what we have, and belief in the power of human spirit and the trust, the ability to develop trust if we can understand kind of how to take that point of view and work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stephen. Please, a round of applause. Never thought I'd end up moderating a panel at SICW with so many four-letter words, but we shall just have to censor that later on in the video. It now gives me great pleasure to invite Professor Luke Ong, the Vice President of Research at NTU, where he'll be sharing a little bit about how to foster innovation and talent in cybersecurity through academic leadership. Professor Ong, please.
Good afternoon. I have been asked to address the cybersecurity talent gap problem from the perspective of academia. I have been a student, researcher, and teacher of computer science for all my working life. So I'm happy to think about this problem. I would say that we need a multi-pronged approach. I think of 4 key components: integrating education. We need to develop the appropriate curriculum. Cybersecurity is a very technological subject. We need to work closely with industry. And together with industry, we need to address real-world problems. And finally, we need leadership in academia to bring all these components together. Let me begin by remarking that the cybersecurity gap is a real and serious problem. An old friend and former Oxford colleague is now a senior principal scientist at AWS, Amazon Web Services. I recently met up with him, and he shared with me his hiring challenge. Now, people might think that it's very difficult to hire AI scientists and engineers because of the AI boom and the general public's fascination with AI. While this is true, according to my friend from AWS, it's many times more difficult to hire cybersecurity experts with the necessary industry experience. And why is this? Well, unlike cybersecurity, since, I suppose, the 2010s, with the amazing achievements of deep learning and events such as AlphaGo's success, AI has captured the public's imagination. Universities around the world have been churning out more and more computer science graduates with a focus on AI. My experience is that in the universities, in the computer science department, more than 80% of the final year projects are about some topics related to AI. There has been a great focus on AI. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said of cybersecurity. Hence, it has been very difficult to hire cybersecurity professionals. And this brings me to my first key component, and that's education. It's important to develop the right kind of curriculum, and the right kind of curriculum is highly interdisciplinary. We all know, I think it's self-evident, that cybersecurity is a technological subject, because cybersecurity is deeply rooted in addressing real-world problems. Professionals in the field try to protect their companies, their organizations from cyber attacks such as phishing email, data breaches, malware, and so on. So to do their job properly, IT professionals, of course, need to have the right kind of technological skill sets. They need to be able to configure firewalls. They need to know their encryption algorithms. They need to devise intrusion detection systems, and so on. But it's not sufficiently and not widely recognized that to do their job properly, IT professionals and cybersecurity experts need to interact technology with policy, with ethical considerations. They also need to understand human behavior. Any organization, any company that is of a decent size will have an IT department. The IT manager's most important task, I imagine, is to protect their company's system, their data from cyber attacks. To do that properly, the first step is to come up with a well thought out cybersecurity and data governance policy. And of course, to do that, they need to be cognizant of the regulatory and legal frameworks such as PDPA. Conscientious IT managers will also want to educate and train the workforce to sensitize them against cyber attacks. Let me illustrate with an example. So my IT colleagues at NTU has a very well thought out cybersecurity awareness programs, which involves simulated phishing exercises. The success of simulated phishing exercise depends on very careful consideration of ethical issues, as well as a good understanding of human behavior. Before you begin the phishing exercise, there had better be informed consent, and the whole exercise must be transparent. Otherwise, it would be counterproductive, leading to mistrust of the IT provision. Moreover, it's clearly sensible to try to minimize any psychological harm. I don't know whether you have received phishing emails before, but phishing emails can cause stress, can cause fear and embarrassment. And it's also very important to design the phishing emails very carefully. One should avoid extreme scenarios. One should involve designing phishing emails that may compromise privacy. One should avoid emails that threaten with extreme consequences, such as employment termination, and so on. And finally, one also needs to think about the consequences of the simulated phishing exercises. What to do with colleagues who fail these tests. Before one takes any disciplinary action, one has to think about it very carefully. I think I should move on. Well, education alone is not sufficient. Cybersecurity is very clearly a technological subject. It makes sense to collaborate very closely with industry. There are two aspects that are highly relevant to a university. First, one forms close relationship with industry partners so that one's students can have internship opportunities. After all, they are the future employers of our undergraduates. And our undergraduates have found internship opportunities to be immensely useful because they very quickly understand what they are lacking, and the motivated ones will be challenged to make up for their weaknesses. It's important to close this hugely beneficial feedback loop with the industry. At NTU, we get industry leaders in cybersecurity and public sector leaders to serve on our advisory board. They help to keep us honest. They help to let us know what are the problems that are of real interest to the industry. Together with industry, it's very important to understand what the real-world challenges are and to address them. Cybersecurity is an arms race. It involves a continuous competitive struggle between cyber attackers on the one hand, who keep coming up with new threats, and cyber defenders on the other, who try to counter them with yet more sophisticated method. And this unending cycle, with neither side achieving success, and neither side can rest on their laurels. But the good thing is, it promotes an unceasing cycle of innovation and counter-innovation. Mm-hmm. And because of this, the technological challenges are evolving, and they keep evolving very quickly. With the advent of foundation models, we are presented with new challenges. The challenge problems now become how to protect our large language models from cybersecurity, cyber attacks, and how to apply AI to better equip our cyber defenders. And of course, quantum technology also poses a challenge. We need to strengthen post-quantum cryptography defenses. And lastly, to pull everything together, we need strong and enlightened leadership in the universities. As the dean of NTU's latest academic college, College of Computing and Data Science, I've spent a lot of my time recruiting faculty talents. This I consider as the single most strategic task of the dean. It's also important to make sure that we promote research in cybersecurity. It's my job to try to make sure that my faculty are properly resourced. It's also my job to make sure that our curriculum is fit for purpose, is up to date, and of course, we need to work very closely with our industry partner. So to sum up, to address the problem of cybersecurity talent gap, we need to integrate education. We need to have curriculum which is up to date. We need to work very closely with our industry partners, making sure that we address real-world challenges, and finally, strong leadership. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Professor Ong. I do agree that hiring cyber is indeed extremely difficult. In a previous role, I had to hire somebody who is cybersecurity for kind of cloud solutions. And I realized that you're looking for cloud engineers is itself difficult. Looking for somebody who can do the cyber of that cloud requires them to have two skill sets, cloud and cyber. Yeah. But unfortunately, we could only offer one salary for that person. It's a complex challenge. But you also described the fact that the cybersecurity professionals don't just need to be good at tech. They need to be good at humans.
Yes.
And that's not something that tech people are generally strong at. So it is a superhuman requirement. Maybe we move over to Professor Wong-Ke Lee, Executive Director, Institute of Information Security and Privacy, to share with us the next frontier in cybersecurity research and development, and hopefully give us some hope on how we can tackle some of these difficult challenges. Professor Lee, please.
Great, thank you. But that was not how I prepared, but that's fine. I will try at the end. So I would say that I started doing cybersecurity research since the mid-1990s when my advisor said, hey, Wenke, you have two choices. One is you build the next web crawler. The other one's doing cybersecurity. I try, web crawler, just you've plateaued this before Google. I give up. I do cybersecurity. It was so much fun. I would say that, fast forward, I mean, if I start over again, I'll do web crawling, in a heartbeat. But anyway, I think it's super fun. But I think that the last couple of years, I started to realize that it's way broader than just technical areas. Of course, policy and laws and all that people talk about here already. For example, policy, right? How do you, for example, incentivize or enforce the policies to be taken seriously? For example, we have colleagues who claims that they, define this BGP routing security policy. I say, okay, Milton, this guy's first Milton. Milton, then how come nobody has adopted yet? Shouldn't you think about it? Why? So basically, policy is easy to say, but it's very super hard actually to get it implemented and also, being enforced. It really comes down to the technical people like us. We have to really sit down and really listen to what the policy people have in mind and then work together. I mean, I think this working togetherness is super important. I'm going to touch upon that a little bit later. But personally, I think last couple of years, I started to realize that there are other elements that we have ignored for the longest time as technical people. For example, I'm sure you've heard your professors, including myself, say, oh, in security, humans are the weakest link, right? I always say, what, in security, everything comes down to password. I don't care how strong your RSA key really is. Where do you store it? In your .ssh file on your system. How do you access that? All I need to know is your password. Once I get to know your password, I log into your system. I know where the key is. That's it. Game over. Who cares if you have a 4096-bit key? It doesn't matter. All comes down to password. Right? So really, it's really a matter of security is all about the human behaviors. Okay, so more seriously, I say, oh, who cares if this user's account get compromised, right? So more seriously, a couple of years ago, I was asked to serve on this Georgia's commission on safe, fair, and equal whatever election. So my job on this commission is to look at the voting machine technologies and then make my recommendation. So long story short, my final recommendation is that don't use any machines. Of course, people say, what are you talking about? You're the only cyber people here. You're the only cybersecurity people. You're saying that we should not use cyber. I say, you're absolutely right. And I cited what Ron Rivers said, so the art of RSA. He basically said critical systems, you have to make it so-called strong software independent, meaning that you should assume the cyber element will fail, and then your goal is to, how do we survive? Well, you say, okay, well, I think it's hacked. So what do? Have the election run again? No, you shouldn't. You should build into your system so that if you suspect something's wrong, you still have another trail of evidence that you can count. So right now, unfortunately, of course, I was ignored. I can spend a whole day talking about my experience. But anyway, so right now the typical setup is that you go in the voting station, there's a terminal, you vote, right? You punch on the screen, you vote, and then print out a paper slip that is supposed to record your vote, and then you put into a scanner. The scanner will scan your vote and then do the counting. And your paper ballot will be dropped into a physically secure box. Okay, so right now all the debates about, oh, we should audit that, audit the paper trail to make sure that when you do a sampling, so-called risk limited auditing by the stats people, that's a well-known technique. So you make sure that your hand count, the sampling hand count, will match what the computer tells you. And that's all they care about. I'm thinking, gee, do you understand this thing called garbage in, garbage out? What if the printed papers actually are tampered, in the sense that the machine that records your vote, if that machine is compromised, then you say you vote for this president candidate, but the printout is some other. What do you do? You say, well, I thought the user would review it, right? That's what the user is supposed to do. The voter is supposed to do that. But according to our colleagues, they actually did an actual study in an actual election event in the state of Tennessee. Only 30% of the voters will actually check. Only 30%, even for the presidential candidates. Is that scary? Right? So that's where the software, a strong software independence principle get violated. Because that element, if it's cyber compromised, then you have no recourse. Yeah, you can sample the papers all day long, but that's garbage, right? So long story short, I want to say that actually then in the final event of our commission, I actually asked the voting machine vendors, say, hey, who designed the printouts? Oh, just us, a bunch of engineers. You know, the form actually looks like your receipt when you go to supermarket. Do you ever check that? You don't, right? So that's a problem. Say, look, at the least, you should have a UI experts to say, hey, we should design the printout exactly how you would vote on paper. So that at least you help the voters recall how they vote. How about that? That's the least you can do. Not doing it. So really, I use the story to say that, I mean, a lot of times we laugh at humans being the weakest link. We are the weakest link. We actually are responsible for designing garbage. And we expect the users to be doing better. They don't. Human behaviors. You cannot fight human behaviors. If you say human the weakest link, because people do not have this, how to put it, I'm not a psych major, right? Basically, we have limited memory capability. We just cannot recall. So that's why, related to password, right? I mean, I'm sure you heard this joke, oh, the way I deal with passwords, I like a sticky note, put on a computer. That's so dumb. Really? Can you come up with a random password, remember it? And then they ask you to change in 3 months? Of course not. Who came up with that? Who came up with that policy? Those are crazy people, isn't it? But those are us. So my point is, really, we are responsible for so many bad policies. And then we blame on users, humans being weak. We are the weak. We are the weak link too. So my point really got changed in my mind. So you know what? We need to do something different. Okay. So anyway, I can go on forever. So really, my point is that really, for the first time, we think about, hey, what we can, in terms of trust, what we can trust users, and how do you make users trust our technologies? That's super important. I think we're at the beginning to really seriously realize, you know what, we are human too, right? If you say they're weak, you know, just look at yourself in the mirror. Okay, so in terms of education, a couple of years ago, I used the exact same story to convince my computer science colleagues, say, you know what, I want to divorce from you guys. I want to set up a separate department for cybersecurity privacy. Initially, they say intellectually nonsense. You know, who cares to deal with adversaries? That's similar to real-time system reliability stuff. I said, no, we're dealing with real users. I then talk about, you know, how bias, you know, whatever the lack of training data resulted in computer vision systems being biased and so on and so forth. And then my colleague in CS, the pure technical people, said, you know what, get lost, go away. We don't want you anymore. So really, that's how we actually set up a new department in Georgia Tech to say, we are a department in cybersecurity privacy. We have not only technical people, but also policy people, you know, lawyers, you know, and former CISOs and so on and so forth. And we have a new degree program called MS in cybersecurity. There are 2 tracks. One's policy track, one's technical tracks. But the required courses, 2 required courses, one is Intro to Security, which I teach, another is Intro to Policy. So the point is that everybody has to take both the technical base and the policy base. Okay, I think that's super, again, there's a first step to tell students for the future kind of a policy practitioner to say, hey, you need to really have a very broad perspective, and we started by forcing you to take classes. I'll stop there. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Lee. So Mr. Stevens said that in order for creativity to survive or thrive, we need good problems and a bit of structure. Professor Lee shared a long list of very good problems, some of which are self-inflicted wounds by the cybersecurity community ourselves. He also shared and added on to the list of many talents that cybersecurity professionals need to have, among which is UI design. Otherwise, you end up with garbage printouts. So it's a challenging problem. Multidisciplinary cyber folks are hard to find. At the end of our panel, we have Ms. Sharon Tan, an engineer at Abnormal Security, to talk specifically about humans, behavioral and generative AI, and advanced strategies for combating modern threats. Sharon, please.
Thank you, Gaurav. Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. I'll give a quick self-introduction. My name is Sharon. I was born and raised in Singapore, and then I attended Stanford University by means of a government scholarship. So that's how I actually began my career in a public service. And I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that Singapore has given me, and happy to speak on behalf of the overseas Singaporeans who are attending today's conference, as well as the Cybersecurity Week. Currently, I'm based in Silicon Valley, where over the past few years, I've been honing skill sets in software engineering and cybersecurity. More specifically, my expertise and interests lie in building large-scale software infrastructure, cloud projects, and ML AI. Currently, I'm working at Abnormal Security, a cutting-edge email security company, to build resilient and efficient software systems to manage billions of emails a day. So the perspective I'll share today is a bit more from a practitioner, someone who's building in the space right now. I'm very interested to complement all the spicy takes that we've already heard from my esteemed colleagues on the panel. So drawing on my experiences in that workspace, as well as conversations with other cybersecurity leaders, both in San Francisco and here, I'll briefly describe two key problems and potential strategies to counter them. So the first problem I'd like to talk about: advanced tools in generative AI have improved attackers' ability to carry out sophisticated social engineering and scripting attacks. So often these are never before seen, and so traditional threat intelligence-based approaches would fail to protect against them effectively. So what does this look like from an attacker's perspective? Well, first, we'll be scraping social media to gather customized details to have a targeted, hyper-personalized attack. And then I'll be using ChatGPT to generate the right attack towards the right person and at the right time. So text-based attacks used to be easier to spot because many of these attackers did not actually have a mother tongue level understanding of business English. So this is now completely democratized with ChatGPT, and we can get attacks from anyone, anywhere that look very realistic. So a quick statistic to share: amongst the advanced attacks that Abnormal Security has tracked over the past year, we have seen the proportion of social engineering increasing by about 25%. And in August 2024, we were processing around 40K such social engineering attacks on a weekly basis. So I can't prove causation with ChatGPT leading to the prevalence of such attacks, but there certainly seems to be a strong correlation that suggests a strong relationship there. And in particular, we also find that attackers are using LLMs, large language models, and advanced tools to improve their own productivity in attacking. So I refer to a recently very interesting report released by OpenAI 2 weeks ago that talked about state-linked cyber actors using ChatGPT for reconnaissance, vulnerability search, scripting operational commands, as well as tactics to evade detection. So just like all of us, we're asking ChatGPT, how do I do my job better? And that's the same for the attackers. So problem number 2 now is I'd like to briefly touch on how remote work trends from COVID add to the increasing proliferation of the cloud ecosystem in the past 2 decades, so it's an ongoing trend, to expand the surface area of attack and also deepen the potential impact of successful attacks. So we're all in this highly interconnected cloud ecosystem, most of us now. And that means that attackers just need to penetrate one O365 cloud account in order to access this veritable treasure trove of sensitive and private data. And they can use the stolen credentials to masquerade as an internal actor and conduct further attacks on fellow colleagues. And on average, such data breaches can cost an average of US dollars 4.81 million in direct, indirect, and lost opportunity costs. So definitely a very serious enterprise problem that we're very motivated to try to protect against. And with remote work, we also know that colleagues who used to work side by side, you can just kind of ask over your shoulder, like, hey, what's going on? Can you help me with this? Right now, everyone's remote or more likely to be remote, and therefore it's easier to impersonate someone and harder to verify someone's identity. So I refer to the infamous MGM attack of 2023 that started with phishing, aka voice phishing. Many of you might be more familiar than me about it, where an attacker impersonated an employee over the phone to get the service desk to reset their password to their cloud account and add administrative privileges, and that really kicked off the entire very expensive attack. So let me quickly move to a couple of potential solutions that I've observed the industry starting to adopt. So first, against addressing problem 1A and 1B about social engineering and personalization, we can employ more behavioral data science as well as generative AI. So the strategy here is to build a customized behavior baseline to detect anomalies. So instead of this never-ending cat and mouse, with motivated by threat intelligence, finding a bad actor, another bad actor that keep changing masks, what we want to do is build a deep and systematic understanding of user behavior within the context of their businesses, and that allows us to kind of paint this baseline of what is normal and therefore flag what is abnormal. So there's this industry trend of moving towards leveraging AI technologies to derive these complex signals from all of this data. It's described as behavioral data science, typically using traditional machine learning, like some many deep learning neural networks that my colleagues have also mentioned as well. So the kinds of signals that such models will be taking in could include, what kinds of communication do employees typically receive, the likelihood of external versus internal communications, perhaps even whether or not a person's email typically begins with hi, or maybe sometimes an attacker just goes straight to the first name. And then analyzing that incoming communication and comparing it with these predefined profiles to detect whether or not it's anomalous. These need to be dynamic, rapidly updated. Models need to be automatically retrained in order to be scalable, constantly taking in feedback from customers on false negatives and false positives that have been missed to become increasingly effective over time. Plus, defenders have also begun to leverage generative AI using deep textual understanding to assess the edge cases. So Gen AI is a bit of a hype, and it's really important to find, I think, the particular use cases where it's really relevant to the task and useful. So for example, Gen AI could scale the work of human security analysts at some kinds of tasks, which would free up security teams to focus on more complicated, more complex issues, and also allow us to reach higher quality work, same level of humans, but at a much higher speed and lower cost. Examples could be, we should aim to power automated end-to-end detection, remediation and reporting for attacks, such as in terms of kind of abstracting out tasks, tedious tasks around, let's say, configuring security solutions in response to new threat intel, or investigating user-reported phishing workflows. Whenever possible, we best free up security teams to focus on the difficult cases, especially in data or tech-centric repetitive tasks where Gen AI might be suitable. Now moving on to solution 2, addressing problem 2 of cloud proliferation and remote work. It's also becoming increasingly prevalent to assemble relevant behavioral data across the full cloud ecosystem, really to detect an account takeover early and prevent the downstream effects that come from data breaches or further internal attacks. So the industry trend that here is kind of solutions looking at all data across the cloud, marketed under data loss prevention, account takeover detection, basically integrating as many external platforms as possible so that we can detect the end user's logins behavior and therefore detect such potential compromise, indicators of compromise early, looking out for suspicious login attempts, new IP addresses, locations, rapid attempts, multiple failures, being able to use that as signal to stop attacks upstream. So to conclude, very quickly to recap my remarks, we discussed first how advanced tools in Gen AI are empowering attackers as well as defenders, and how the industry is moving beyond these intelligence-based, rules-based approaches to build up behavioral baselines, really learning about how the specific humans operate in their specific contexts. And also using Gen AI increasingly to free up human analysts from repetitive or manual tasks, so that as the attacks scale, our defenders also scale. Second, combating the proliferation of cloud accounts and remote work, building in solutions that increasingly pull in multiple signals from across cloud accounts to detect account takeover incidents very early on. So from those two kind of assessments or points, I think there's lots of room for collaboration between government, academia, and industry. Adding on to what my colleagues have already mentioned on the panel, one example is in terms of building in signals from government data as well. For example, identity systems in Singapore like SingPass or CodePass that are built into day-to-day business activities as additional signals of attack. Or working with academia to refine further machine learning models to be able to more effectively and quickly detect anomalies as well. So I believe there's a lot of potential for further collaboration. Looking forward to the discussion upcoming in the Q&A. And also want to make a quick last remark that, with Singapore's position, technologically savvy population, strong governance frameworks, a really good business reputation, I think Singapore is really well poised to become a leader in cybersecurity on a global stage, build on our governance advantage to also go into the cybersecurity business industry advantage, and really kind of, in that tripartite way, develop our ecosystem and community better. So with that, I'll pass the time back to Gaurav. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ms. Tan. And thank you also for summarizing your own talk, which now leaves me with nothing else to do. But perhaps just to make a slight observation about the use of ChatGPT and phishing emails. I'm now at that awkward age where I need glasses, but I refuse to wear glasses. I've perched them on my head, but I actually should be using them to read this email. So when I type emails, it's usually full of typos, as my colleagues will share. My emails have many typos in them. But I tell them this is deliberate. Because if an email contains no typos, it's ChatGPT generated. That's the one you should be worried about. If it contains typos, it's actually me. So don't worry. And we've come to that point where actually spotting the signs of phishing is no longer spotting the errors in the email. It's spotting the perfect email, and which goes to that kind of different lens that we now take to the same problem. We come now to the Q&A side, part of the conversation where I hope you guys will engage with the panelists in deep, probing, difficult questions. The QR code up on screen and slido.com, just enter hashtag SICWRIE. Please feel free to ask your questions. While all of you are thinking of difficult, probing questions to ask them, I will start with one question, which is less difficult, but hopefully something to get things started. Each one of the panelists have shared about how innovation cannot be done in silos. It is tripartite, it is cross-sectoral, it is multidisciplinary. It is all of these magical words that need to come together somehow. I'll ask the question, how? How do you think we can do this multidisciplinary, cross-sectoral, really Marvel Avengers coming together to deliver this mythical cybersecurity creature and solution? Maybe, Mr. Koh, we start with you. You started the ball rolling with the tripartite. How do you think we can do this?
I guess it's like how hedgehogs make love. Do it carefully.
Very carefully.
All right? No. I think the idea really is that we intellectually we all know it needs to be done, but it's a real challenge how to bring the people together. I think firstly, the different groups of people have different mindsets. Secondly, I think they have different incentives. So and third, they see the problems differently. So trying to align all of them together is a huge task. Okay, if it wasn't so difficult, we would have solved it already. So I think, yeah, it's a long-winded answer to say I don't know.
Maybe, Mr. Stephen, you could take a shot at the answer.
Sure. You know, I think the moral equivalent of exchange programs is a way to go. I mean, it certainly helps in the academic industrial partnerships. You know, it's how we do internships in the academic industrial context, where we kind of latch on to a professor who we share some common ground with. We develop a relationship. We bring in a bunch of interns, and then we can develop some good relationship. And it's again, as we've heard so much in these last 2 days, it's developing a common language, some trust, and then things start to happen. And it's about human beings creating a connection based on spending time together and developing some things to talk about.
So it is something that we need to do slowly, carefully, with a lot of investment of time and effort.
Sure.
But it is something very important. I think all of the panelists fully agree on that level of importance. We have a question from one of the... Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
Look, yes.
So addressing your question, I think this is where the Singapore's approach to getting things done, where various organizations have KPIs to meet, can make a difference. So I also have a responsibility at AI Singapore. AI Singapore has many KPIs to meet. So one of its programs is to, from time to time, organize global challenges. So recently, AI Singapore, together with NTU, so that's 2 out of the 3 parties, together organize a Singapore Global Safe and Secure LLM Challenge. So recent research shows us that prompt and token level jailbreak attacks can cause large language models to produce harmful, malicious, even toxic information. So this global prize challenge is open to partners around the world. It doesn't depend on nationality. Research teams from academia, industry can take part. It has 2 tracks. The first track is attack. So participants are asked to come up with AI models that can interact automatically with large language models to cause a jailbreak attack. The second track is defense. Now the challenge is for the participants to come up with methods to protect systems from the track 1 attack. So I think this is a good example of a tripartite collaboration involving academia, research teams, public sector, and of course, industry partners.
Thanks so much. We have 3 questions on research. I'm going to summarize 2 of them and put the third one on screen because the third one's quite a fun one. The 2 of the questions are about translation. How do we best translate cyber from research into actual innovations, into actual products that go to the consumers? So how do we better translate research into actual solutions? But I want to put this one up on screen because as part of the research, there we go. As part of the research, we also end up sometimes with slightly odd problems and sometimes bad research. Maybe I turn to Professor Lee because you shared many examples of things that you had wished had been done differently in some way, shape, size, or form. We start with the bad research questions. How do you think, what are the kinds of bad research you've seen and how could it have been done differently?
So I think that for research, I tell my students that, why are you doing this? I just want to finish my degree and then what? So what's your thesis? Your thesis is about a story. You cannot just staple 2, 3 papers together. It's what's the story? What's so new? How do you change the world kind of thing? So really bad research to me is that you're just incremental, just doing things that people can do. For example, the way we try to decide, our standard of hiring new faculty is that, is this person's work can be replicated by my student in a year or 2? The answer is yes, not hiring, because it's not significant enough. So the point that has to be, you open up new area or you come up with a solution that people have not thought about. Now, to the related question is how to translate it into practice. Yeah, it's something that I try to figure out as well. It's basically sometimes you're so ahead of time. For example, my thesis in 1999, the title was A Data Mining Framework for Constructing Features and Models for Intrusion Detection. 1999. So in today's term, there will be applied deep learning, big AI to security, right? But back then, I can tell you a lot of security people say, data mining, machine learning, what do they have anything to do with cybersecurity? So my point is that as a researcher, it's very hard to actually predict the future in that way. But again, as a researcher, your job is to innovate. And then, of course, the challenge of translating it into practice, that needs a lot of work. So we're still working on it in academia. So at Georgia Tech, we have all kinds of programs now. We, for example, work with the business school, and they partner some MBA students with our students to do market research and so on and so forth. So again, yeah.
And Professor Koh, Mr. Stephen, you shared some of the challenges that you face running an R&D lab. You work in a company that needs to make profit. Yes, and at some point, all the science lab experiments with the mad scientists need to actually go out there into the real world. Indeed. How do you bridge that? How do you make that happen?
Oh yeah, that's my whole job. Indeed, yeah. Indeed, and we've people say, oh well, like what kind of success rate do you want? Well, how about 100%? That's the kind of success rate I want. That's not the kind of success rate I get. But and you can't win all the time. But we try to win all the time. So. And what you try to do is limit the losses, and I've killed off some projects that were very painful to kill off because they're beloved. I hate to use the terrible images, but you have to kill the beloved projects from time to time. Usually people will agree and they'll just kind of move on of their own accord, but it doesn't always happen. I'm sure everybody here has seen it in one way, shape, or form in government, in private sector, in academia, and you just have to do it.
Let me
Please, yeah.
Let me jump in here. I think this is one of the challenges that I experience. and that is having the KPIs drive certain things. So when I was a graduate student, I asked my professor was on a board of a venture capitalist fund, and he was saying that, oh, this weekend we're meeting, and we're firing the CEO. So I said, why? You know, like, what's his batting average? And the answer was that, oh, he's tracking 70%. So I was shocked. You know, it's like, wow, 70% is not good enough. And then I had the presence of mind to ask him, what is the average, batting average of a venture capitalist CEO? I said, that's a good question. Thankfully, I got my degree. And he said, that's a good question. And he said that it's about 30 to 40%. So this guy was taking all the safe bets. And the whole idea of the venture capitalist is not to take the safe bets because they don't pay off, but to take the bold bets, because those are the ones that are going to make the challenge. So I think one of the challenges I face is that KPIs drive the behavior. So from a government perspective, we're conservative. You know, you're dealing with taxpayers' money. Like you were saying, I want 100% return. But it's ridiculous. You can't achieve 100% return when you're dealing in the RIE arena. So just add to the dilemmas that we face.
Well, I can promise you some spectacular failures. But I don't really want to go into it right now.
And just as an indicator of how long I've worked for Mr. Koh, I was going to tell that exact story about batting averages. So I'm glad he shared it because it's firsthand. I was going to have to make up a fictitious boss that I worked for. But the challenge then is with the RIE ecosystem from a national perspective. Many of these universities are state-supported or state-funded, and the R&D programs are state-funded. What's the right batting average for fundamental research? Is it closer to the lower side of the spectrum or the higher side? Do you want to be very cautious with taxpayer money, or more permissive in an academic environment to allow them to fail faster, fail more, try wilder ideas? And that becomes part of that dilemma. We move from research and translation into the talent problem. So all of us have shared about this mythical, multidisciplinary, superpowered creature that we all hope to have. We do have a gap. And the challenge is exacerbated by the human dynamics around it. I mean, every time there is a breach, there's an incident, you have to figure out who's responsible. And while the CISO or the cybersecurity person may not be ultimately the one accountable or the one holds the public-facing role, they do take part of that responsibility. That, in this question, clearly has a problem. So we're burning out our cyber warriors. Public doesn't celebrate their wins, but crucifies the failures. What can we change to solve this? I don't think this panel will have that answer because that's a whole panel in and of itself. But the second part of the question is, how do we do cyber RIE and build enterprises with CISOs and cyber warriors who are tired, who are dealing with real-world challenges in this multi-dimensional chess game? We're asking a lot of them. Maybe Professor Luke, you wanted to try starting this question off? You're on mic, yeah.
Cybersecurity is a very technological topic. Cybersecurity as a subject is, of course, has many different components, including highly mathematical topics such as cryptography, but also very practical things. I think for cybersecurity research to be relevant and impactful, one approach is to condition the research to be translational, almost by design. So in the Singapore universities, there is such a thing as corporate labs. So this is a tripartite collaboration between the university, the industry, and the public agency, with the, of course, industry supplying real-world problems, as well as some of the infrastructure, the university providing the researchers, the students, the professors, and the public agency providing the funding. So in the cybersecurity space at my university, we are working with MasterCard to develop a corporate lab. This is very exciting because they are already partnering with us in offering a master degree in cybersecurity. So research that comes out of this corporate lab, I would say is by design relevant because every year, I mean the pattern is at the start of the work year, the partners meet together and the industry will have a big say as to which projects to fund. They will only fund projects that are relevant to them.
Can I pose another way to think about this?
Please do.
And I actually want to pose it of Professor Ong here because you have contributed to the field of game theory, I believe, in your research. Yes. Okay. So
that is research.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes. Right.
Game
So let's think about this. So there's an analog. All right. The question said something about crucifying failures in cybersecurity. There's an analog where huge sums of money are regularly lost, and we don't crucify those people. Venture capital, right? We celebrate people who lose huge sums of money all the time, and they go on and they're serial entrepreneurs, and then they go win, right? And we celebrate them when they win. They lose again, and then they win. And we keep funding them. What's the difference? So if we can figure out what the difference between these two games is, what's the difference in the rules? All right, and then we go and we construct it. We change the rules slightly in the cyber domain, and we change the rules, and then we celebrate the winners in the cyber world.
Yeah. Well, funding research from the perspective of a university is a different ballgame altogether. Because in the university, we are interested in not just technological subjects, but also the fundamental, the basic subjects. Pure mathematics, for example.
Sure, absolutely.
The humanities, right? So these are intellectual pursuits that are valuable in their own right.
Absolutely.
So for these disciplines, we don't expect them to produce outcome that is measurable. They are just good in themselves.
Yes.
So I'm taking the easy way out. In the university funding of research, we need to consider different aspects. I mean, not just measuring the outcome, in dollar terms.
Yeah.
There is a tangible takeaway from the conversation, and it's about rethinking how we evaluate and how we measure the successes of cybersecurity as a whole.
Yes.
It's an interesting thing for us to ponder after this.
Indeed.
I move on to another question, and this one is, before I move on to this question, there is a comment here still about the talent issue, which I think is fascinating to raise and will probably have no answer. But in order to popularize and increase cybersecurity talents, improve their technology depth and soft skill sets, basically create this creature, how do we give them more incentives and support and remuneration for these individuals? Obviously, the cybersecurity talent gap comes supply and demand, market forces. If the salaries were higher, there would be greater supply. There is going to be still a challenge getting them, but there is market forces at play. It's an interesting question. But I want to move on to a more technical question, and this one will go to Ms. Tan. AI-driven cybersecurity solutions rely on good quality cyber attack data. How do we promote better data sharing between industries, especially those being attacked in academia? And if I could just broaden the question a little bit, this focuses purely on cyber attack data, but cybersecurity as a whole is an industry that's very reliant on very large amounts of data, which you in industry do have some sets. How do you promote this kind of data sharing and collaboration across public and private and academic?
I think it's a very fair question. To be very honest, I think businesses are not always incentivized to kind of go through the effort to share this data. We definitely start with like a certain contract of trust with our customers and our end users of protecting their privacy and confidentiality as well as their reputation, right? And so, there have to be many steps in between of aggregation, anonymization before the data is clean enough to be somewhat usable, and that takes significant resources. Right, and so thinking about what would incentivize businesses to do that, I feel like some of the ideas that we've kind of already discussed around trust, around maybe like some kind of federated, multi-source kind of contributions where you get to take if you also give, right? That kind of relationship could be I think could be quite fundamental to encouraging such sharing. But another quick point I think I wanted to point out is, to some extent, you might never be able to get all the cyber attack data that you need. And so investment in solutions that allow you to detect never before seen attacks is also pretty critical to try to kind of cover, I guess, the entire base of known and unknowns as much as you can, of course, within means. But I'd love to hear any other views from my fellow panelists on this.
Yeah, please.
So actually in the US, I've been involved in multiple efforts led by the government. For example, DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, they funded us for 10 years, and our task was to work with the security industry to curate the data. And of course, some of them have conditions. Say, hey, this data is so sensitive, you cannot share. But some of them, they say, yeah, you can share. And so our job is actually, so this deals with malware samples. 10 years ago, we were processing about 500,000 samples each day. And then we basically, essentially output the intelligence from the malware and then send to DHS a data feed. And then DHS would say, for industry partners, even governments, I actually find out later on, the country of Israel, for example, actually a subscriber to that data feed. And actually that's been so successful that after we kind of exited that effort, now they're funding University of Southern California, through some multi-millions of dollars a project to continue this kind of effort. So like Sharon saying that, I think if you do that on just industry sharing with academia, that's more or less one-off ad hoc kind of effort. So really for this kind of data sharing, because of sensitivity around some of data, I think having government-led effort would be the way to go.
Thanks so much, Professor Lee. We have come to the end of the time. There's still a couple more questions, which unfortunately I couldn't get to, but at least me to wrap up very broadly, a very wide-ranging conversation. And I'll draw a quote from what Senior Minister Teo shared in his opening address. We started off by trying to define all of the rules and laws that are needed to protect systems from abuse. How do we secure our digital infrastructure? How do we secure all of these systems from attacks? We've now realized that there's a new, probably more important problem. How do we protect societies, the humans themselves, from the misuse of all of these systems that we've been busily protecting? The next bound of challenges for all of us will feature new lions to outrun, some of which are generations of our own technologies, some of which we have unleashed, and require us to have new definitions for what success looks like, how we measure it, how we train these multi-skilled Avengers to be able to pull out all of these fascinating skill sets from technical to human-centric, and how we create structures to share and learn and collaborate across the silos we've created for ourselves. So lots of food for thought. I hope this panel has opened up some areas for you to think about, ponder, and discuss afterwards. But please join me in thanking our panelists for sharing. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Once again, a big thank you to our panel. May I please invite our panelists for photo taking? If you could please stand up front first. Photo taking. Please look forward. It's wonderful how Gaurav started this idea of the Avengers, the Marvel Avengers, where we have a team down here. And I think the insights, the examples is a great reminder to each and every one of us. How do we lean into the human, our diverse perspectives, as well as our strength? Thank you very much. Please give our panelists here a big round of applause. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I trust that today's session has provided valuable insights, takeaways, what are some of the new lions that we need to start running away from, and how can we strengthen this superhuman task force of the Avengers as we navigate this ever-changing cybersecurity terrain. Well, we have come to the close of this session. Please do take this opportunity as you head on to connect for, tea break. Where the tea break will be is if you exit this way towards the left, it is at the foyer area. So please do take some time, spend some time with us, connect over this. The idea here is to have greater collaboration. So we look forward to seeing you at the tea break. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Chow. Thank you, everyone.